We heard from the Dolphins coordinators today. We've heard from some of the players in the build up to week 2 against the Patriots. What is everybody saying after a disastrous week 1? We get you covered here on Locked On Dolphins.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Miami, welcome to another episode of Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day here on the Locked On Network. I'm your host, Kyle Krabs, a lifelong Miami Dolphins fan, host of Locked On Dolphins, co-host of Locked On NFL Scouting, author of Touchdown Miami on Substack, NFL staff writer for A to Z Sports. Want to give a special welcome and shout out to our everydayers because it is your team every day here on the Locked On Network. We don't just say it, we live it. Today's episode of Locked On Dolphins is sponsored by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Today on the show, we are getting into a little bit of everything from a little bit of everyone, from Mike McDaniel on Wednesday to Anthony Weaver on Thursday. We heard from Frank Smith. We've heard from players like Tua Tagovailoa and Devon Achane and Jordan Brooks. We got a gauntlet of players that we have heard from in the aftermath of the week 1 loss 33-8 to the Colts. Everybody's got all kinds of questions. And those questions range from, is this who you are? Where was the disconnect? Were you caught off guard by what the Colts were able to do? What were your game plans like? What needs to be different? So we're going to try our best to kind of get into all of it. And it's going to start in week 2 with Mike McDaniel and the things that he talked about on Wednesday during his presser that continue as we get the player availability from Thursday's practice to paint a picture. And I'm talking about the offensive line in particular, where James Daniels obviously goes on injured reserve. The team signs Cole Strange off the Browns practice squad to their active roster. And then Austin Jackson, Mike McDaniel said on Wednesday, I'm planning for Larry Borum at right tackle. Austin Jackson was also not involved in the Thursday practice. Now, Mike said that the Austin thing was not anything that was broken. In terms of a determination of exactly how long it'll be, we're not there yet. And that was as of Wednesday for a injury that happened on Sunday, but it was a toe. And it was a toe that he was on the injury report for ahead of week 1 after he missed all of August. So we may see Larry Borum for some time. We might not. No, Mike was kind of flippant about what it was going to be. And then as far as that right guard spot, I've heard different variations of quotes of the McDaniel quote on Keon Smith. And if I had to bet, it would be Keon Smith because he was the first to get the call in week 1 on Sunday. I am of the opinion, and I try to mix facts with opinions, and facts are important and feelings are also important, but I try to mix facts and feelings here on the program as best I can. It is a feeling that I think they'd be better off with somebody not named Keon Smith. It is a fact that Keon Smith was the first name they called in week 1. When Mike was asked about Keon Smith, I am confident in Keon, thought he did a good job. One of the more difficult things to do is come into a game and replace a starter. I thought he did a good job with that. But he also said, this was the last sentence of the quote that I didn't really see anybody talk about, I feel confident the different directions we can go. That's at least interesting to me that you kind of left the door open for potentially doing something different. Darren Waller was on the bike today at practice. He was not an active participant. And what I can tell you is this. The idea that the Dolphins can roll in with Julian Hill and Tanner Connor, and that's it at the tight end position against the Patriots in week 2, it's an untenable situation. And if they do it again, they're just begging to get burned by the Tanner Connor limitations, if you will. And heaven forbid you fall behind on the scoreboard and he's got to play as many snaps as Jaylen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, which is what happened on Sunday. It's just asking for a disaster, right? So whether that's the 2 practice squad tight ends are Greg Dulcich and Hayden Rusi. Hayden Rusi has been with the team since last year as an undrafted free agent. Good blocking type player, but has never really had a chance to get that elevation. I will be interested in the midst of the other changes and availabilities, what the domino effect could look like for Miami. Now, the subplot here is a player that was a limited, or at least somewhat limited participation. I'm recording right before the injury report comes out, so I don't have the formal designation. Jaylen Wright was back at practice on Thursday. And if Jaylen Wright's able to go, I mean, shoot, we hardly got Ollie Gordon involved. Maybe we could go with two running backs. But if Jaylen Wright's able to dress, that does free up your second practice squad elevation, because remember, the Dolphins are doing the juggling act of a kicker coming up for the first 3 weeks of the season, but Jason Sanders is on injured reserve for at least 4 weeks. So there's a shoe that's going to have to fall there at some point, whether that's we're going to do a 1 week change out for a different kicker and then activate Jason, or if we're going to put somebody else on a reserve list and put Riley up on the active roster because Jason's going to be out long. A lot of juggling in that regard. But if Jaylen Wright's able to dress, and that's not a scratch for you, you can save the Jeff Wilson Jr. practice squad elevation and then potentially land someone else, aka a tight end, to give you a third body in that room. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of the offensive side of the ball for Mike McDaniel, and what you can kind of expect to see out of some personnel stuff that's trending. Mike talked about Tua as well, and the game that Tua had, which, whether it's been on Touchdown Miami, where I did a film study of all of the pass attempts and dropbacks that he had, and we'll talk about what Tua had to say about his performance in the next segment as well. Not a strong performance, for whatever reason you want to boil it down to, whether that's week one with new personnel and Lou Anarumo and the Colts players going on Adam. I think it was Cam Bynum who was like, yeah, Anarumo was so all over the place, like we couldn't keep up with it, let alone like expect Tua to keep up with it. That's fine if that's the case. But even still, it felt like there was execution to be had that wasn't made. And Mike talked about that as well. He was asked about second in the league when it comes to multi-3 turnover plus games since 2020. What's the key to fixing that? He was asked about Xavier Howard's comments that once you take away Tua's first read, there's a panic mode, and that's a direct quote from Xavier Howard. Mike said, I think I saw a quarterback play that was less than to be desired, which Tua absolutely knows, but he's a captain, the franchise quarterback, and everybody kind of fell victim to something similar. I also know that he's very, very much like most quarterbacks, to be honest, where you're putting a lot of work into something for your first time doing it for a matter of 4 quarters and months. You're not at your best. My biggest thing is I don't want to make the same mistakes twice. I don't want to have things happen for no reason or in vain. You have to make them purposeful by improving upon the things you failed at and then making sure your teammates do the same. So he's comfortable with that in terms of what we need to get better at collectively. He and everybody else needs to be better for us to get done what we want to get done. Okay? Fair enough. I want to get to Tua and his take on the game, but then also a player event that happened this week with both sides of the ball that is probably necessary based on the leadership structure of this team, but it just sets off some more alarm bells for me as far as the state of this team and what it's going to look like as we continue through 16 more games. That's next here on Locked on Dolphins. Make sure you guys stick with us. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride with more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else as of August 2025. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from metallic accents to available Nappa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. With all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you could drive with confidence through almost any season, including football season. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move or be moved. Time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. This grape, ginger, and lime flavored shot brings the iconic taste of the golf course favorite to a non-alcoholic boost. It's perfect for sinking birdies or staying up for primetime games or making memories with your friends. It's a hole-in-one for your energy game, whether you're out on the course or need that little extra push to power through the back half of your day. 5-Hour Energy Transfusion delivers the clubhouse flavor you love without ever leaving the green. Golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors. The grape, ginger, lime flavor of 5-Hour Energy Transfusion gives you the best part of your clubhouse go-to without leaving the course or chasing down the bev cart. Now you can amp up the fun even more. Just buy, snap, and enter for a chance to win a dream golf trip for two to any golf trip in the USA. Tee up that trip. Visit 5hewin.com for full rules and entry. No purchase necessary. Excludes the Masters tournament. Ends October 31st, 2025. Pull up the transcript here from Mr. Tua Tagovailoa. And he was asked about the turnovers, first and foremost. And what he alluded to was not executing and trusting his footwork. I think it's more the reasons why things happen. You look at the play for what it is. You look at the timing of it. Was it the right timing? Was I playing in the right timing of that play or not? There's a lot of them where I should have progressed, but didn't. That's what my feet had told me to do, but I didn't do that. I think it's one of those where it's trust your technique, trust your footwork, and then just go through your progression in that sense. Week one rust? I don't know. I hope so. Now, I do not expect him to play as poorly as he did against Indianapolis every game this season. I think that's a ridiculously low bar to set because there is familiarity with the core concepts of the system. You're not going to have week one flying blind with what a team is going to try to do to you. Although the Dolphins talked a lot this offseason about, and this includes Bobby Slowick and it includes Tua. The Dolphins get unique schemes pertaining to them because of how they play and their personnel. And they have, I don't want to call it a gimmick offense. And I know that's a popular phrase that the Mike McDaniel gimmick offense has been found. I don't think it's a gimmick. I just think the style of play has had riddles that have put challenges in front of the play caller, the coach, and the quarterback. And it kind of feels stuck. And that's where I think this week in week two is a big bounce back opportunity because there's a chance to fresh start a game script and try again. And if I win the toss, I know Mike McDaniel is all about the possession strategy and deferring to the second half. If I'm Mike McDaniel and I win the coin toss, I want the ball. That's an opinion. Let me be clear. That's not a fact. That's an opinion. But it's opinion that's rooted in, I think the worst thing you could do after last week's game, and you didn't stop anybody, is win the toss and say, yeah, I want to know what the game script is like before I get the first possession of the second half to strategize that. And give the ball to the Patriots. And what happens if they go down the field and they score? Like the stress is right back on. So from my perspective, I would choose for once to do something out of character and try to galvanize with a decision the offensive side of the ball. And then I would come out and whatever you wanted to do and wanted to be this offseason that you couldn't show because you fell behind and had turnovers and had 2 turnovers that set up a short field and gave up 17 points in the first 18 minutes of game clock, do that on the opening script, but take the ball first if you have the chance. And that's a decision that Mike McDaniel can have the chance to make. And it's not guaranteed because it's a coin toss, right? But I reflect on them talking about not showing what they wanted to show. And apparently the players talked to amongst themselves about it because Tua Tagovailoa said that the team got everybody together and had a players meeting. He was asked, what gives you confidence into Sunday from what you've seen from the guys today that you'll take care of business here against the Patriots? Tua said, first off, it starts with what we talked about, our operation, and then over communicating, guys knowing where to go, understanding what the play is and the concept, and then being in the right spots. Defensively, while we had our own players meeting, defense got up there and kind of gave their spiel of the points of emphasis and what they want to do to accomplish this Sunday. Really, it was a collection of guys to get the team together and get the guys together for a players meeting. I think we did a really good job out there at practice. This was on Wednesday, but at the end of the day, you can have the best practice, you can have the worst practice. Regardless, it won't guarantee you win. So we've got to be prepared. As far as what the offensive side of the ball did, Tua said that they also had that meeting about what they want to hang their hat on this week. I got the offense together and we had a meeting about the things that we wanted to do to hang our hats on this week, points of emphasis and how we want to go about it this week. We all communicated to those guys. So that's what we got. Players only meetings in week one. I think it embodies, like, it's a player-led locker room. And we've this offseason debated and weighed the merits of, if it goes right, it's because you have the right players in place, right? And it can work. But if it's not winning, the concern becomes your leaders then have to be the rock solid major conduit between the coach and the locker room. And if you are a little bit more hands off and things aren't going well, you can lose the pulse of your players. Your leaders will know, but it will put more weight on that relationship to keep everybody on the same page. So when it's winning, a players only locker room makes a ton of sense. It's a great idea, but it's not a guarantee that it's going to protect you from potential shortcomings that are prone to when there's hardship, if not everybody is on the same page. Devon Achane was asked about the way the season started. He said, we can't believe it. We're just going to take it one game at a time. We didn't think we were going to come out and the score was going to be that, so we're just going to focus on next week. Jordan Brooks was asked about the defensive players only meeting, and he talked about the responsibility of staying locked in. And I think the concern was just how apparently greatly unlocked in the team was in week one. Tyrell Dodson told Cam Wolfe in the locker room, and this was a Cam Wolfe report last night on Wednesday night, we folded. We folded. You remember when Jordan Poyer got to Miami? And he was like, yeah, kind of the book on the Dolphins is if you jump on them early, they're going to fold. And then we've heard about the softness. And then we heard all offseason about player accountability and being accountable to each other. And you hit the first ounce of hardship in week one, and players are walking out of the game saying, yeah, we folded. It just doesn't give good vibes. And like, you could say all the right things. And I'm obviously in the weeds with what this team is saying every day because it's my job. It's my responsibility. And I try to not be too overreactionary and I try to take things at face value. And I try to be fair to give whatever plan you set as a team and team building in place a chance to be successful. And you could choose to believe it or not. And you know, with Miami, this early return now needs a return on the other end of the spectrum. It cannot survive too many more on this end of the spectrum. But it was very disheartening for me to hear Tyrell Dodson, who's the green dot defender on defense, per Cam Wolfe, tell Cam Wolfe, yeah, we folded in week one. I think everybody kind of saw that it was a losing battle, and they quickly recognized it was a losing battle, and they didn't get a lot of wins defensively. And we'll talk about Anthony Weaver and the defense and kind of the plan that they had in this game and what I think stands out about that. But we got players only meeting, and the quote, we folded, 60 minutes into the season. And if the saying for the team, the slogan, is they talk, we do, who's talking? Because right now, all of the offseason focus has been talk. And you did not do in week 1. Sets off some alarm bells. But the book is not written, right? I just want to weigh my opinions based off facts and things that we know and see. Going to go into Anthony Weaver. He had a quote about the secondary that I thought was interesting off the heels of the week 1 showcase and what Daniel Jones and the Colts offense was able to do. We're going to get into that next here on Locked On Dolphins. Make sure you guys stick with us. NFL season is here. FanDuel's making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love FanDuel because it fits however you like to play, whether it's player props, same-game parlays, jumping in live as the season unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your favorite team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, it's easy. It is the best way to add more energy to your Sunday. So if you are ready to play, the Dolphins right now favored by 1.5 points at home against the Patriots in week 2. Patriots dealing with some injuries of their own, including cornerback Christian Gonzalez. I got a thought on that in just a minute. But if you're ready to get in on the action, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. I'm going to put my fan hat on here before we talk about Anthony Weaver. There's one thing I am exceptionally hoping for in week 2. And it's not a loss and it's not a win. I would like to see the team win because wins are fun and you play the game to win. And I don't think wins precludes you from having difficult conversations and making right decisions from a personnel standpoint and from a who is responsible for your football team standpoint. Case in point, the Dolphins in 2021 when they fired Brian Flores, right? So I'm not saying I'm rooting for a loss, just like I'm not saying I desperately want you have to win the game, right? I want clarity. That's this whole season has been about, I'm excited for it either way. And I caught some you-know-what about that in the summertime, saying that I'm excited for the season. And I'm excited for clarity. And here's what I don't want. Patriots have a few guys banged up, including Christian Gonzalez. Keon White had an injury. Morgan Moses has a foot. Harold Landry has a foot. Harold Landry was really disruptive for the Patriots in week 1 against the Raiders. I believe I believe it's Keon White and Harold Landry are back already, but Christian Gonzalez hasn't done work since the end of July. I'm not going to sit here and root for having net positive luck in the way of player availability for the opponents that you play. I don't want to play a team while it's down and that be how you get a win. I want to play every team at the best version of itself relative to the best version of itself that the Dolphins can be. I don't want to be like, wow, that team's got their starting quarterback and left tackle down. Great. I'm excited. Let's go kick their butt. I want to see it with Christian Gonzalez out there because I want an honest assessment. An honest assessment. I don't want to have misliers or you get to the end of the road and you talk about how many games you played against teams with backup quarterbacks and how that skews the win-loss total. No. I want to see this team play the authentic team that you're capable of playing on the other side of the field. That to me is the most important thing. And if you win, I'll be fired up. And if you lose, well, at least we'll know, right? And a big part of winning this week is going to be doing something different with the coverage rates. The Dolphins played hardly any cover 3. They played a lot of quarters in cover 2 against the Indianapolis Colts, but the spacing put a lot of stress on the underneath, and it took away the ability of the pass rush to impact the game. And I was glad to hear Anthony Weaver acknowledge that. He talked today about the spacing and needing to tighten the screws a little bit as far as their coverage spacing to help ensure that they aren't giving free access too quickly. Dolphins should have been tighter in their zone coverage last Sunday, defensive coordinator Anthony Weaver explains. He also did go on to say that Storm Duck executed his responsibility on the 2nd and 20, and that it was Iafitu Melifonwu who kind of got off his landmark with 2 verticals. And I believe that, but I still also vehemently agree that Storm Duck has a chance to further squeeze that throw by sinking with nobody holding him into the flat. So I expect maybe there to be a little bit less of true country cover 2 zone because that was where you kind of had spaces that things were available. And it's tough when it's early in the season and everybody's new, right? The whole secondary is new. So I'm going to give Anthony Weaver a little bit of grace in that regard. I'll give him more grace than I will give Mike McDaniel in the offense, given what it was. Even amongst your new starters, right? Who are the new starters that played in this game? James Daniels, he played 3 snaps. Keon Smith's been in the program for years. Tanner Connor's been in the program for years. Devon Achane got 85% of the offensive snaps. Malik Washington was on the team last year. Your highest snap you had 1 rookie guard at left guard, and he was one of the better performers on the team. So I'm not going to give the offense as much grace, or I'm not going to give the quarterback as much grace as Anthony Weaver trying to call the defense with brand new pieces on the back end, and you don't really know what you have at corner. Was it good enough? No. Am I a little bit more understanding on why you had the flaws that you had? Yes. And I want to see what the spacing adjustments look like. It's a big test. It's a big piece of this in week 2. Excited to see what it looks like because it's going to take us another step closer to clarity. And that is what I covet more than anything else in 2025 for the Miami Dolphins. Hope you guys enjoyed. Kyle Krabs, keep it locked in here on Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day. That's going to do it for me here today on the show. I am out of here, and I'll be back to talk to you all again soon.